Fear. It's a feeling we all know, deep, unsettling, primal. It creeps into our thoughts, shakes our bodies, and keeps us alert to potential danger. But why? Why are we wired to fear, and how does this emotion affect our lives in ways we might not even realize? Join us as we delve into the psychology of fear, how it evolved, how it works in the brain, and how we can better understand and manage it in our daily lives. Fear has been a part of humanity since the beginning of our existence. In our distant past, it was an essential survival mechanism, a primal instinct that allowed us to respond quickly to danger and avoid threats that could endanger our lives. Our early ancestors faced real, physical dangers, wild animals, hostile environments, and rival tribes. Fear helped them escape from predators, make split-second decisions in life-threatening situations, and preserve the survival of the species. But as humans evolved and built societies, the nature of our threats changed. No longer do we need to fear a lion lurking in the tall grass, but instead, we face more subtle, psychological dangers. Today, fear manifests differently through anxiety, stress, and social pressures. Modern fears have adapted to the social and technological challenges we face. Instead of fearing physical predators, we fear social rejection, failure, and even things we can't physically see, like the negative judgment of others or the constant bombardment of news and media. In the past, fear was tied to physical survival. However, over time, as we evolved into more socially complex beings, fear shifted toward emotional and psychological threats. In a way, the fear of rejection in a social setting can feel as threatening as the fear of being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. The pressures of modern life, from social media comparison to career anxiety, have introduced new forms of fear. Social anxiety, fear of missing out, FOMO, and existential dread all stem from our primal fear of not being accepted or failing to thrive within a group. And it's not just our individual fears. The media and technology play a large role in shaping how we experience fear. The constant flow of distressing news, real-time alerts, and the sensationalized portrayal of danger in media heightens our anxiety and often leads to a collective sense of fear. Social media, news outlets, and even fictional media like movies and TV shows contribute to our perception of fear. They often amplify the dangers in our world, making us feel like threats are imminent, even when they're not. While this helps create a sense of suspense in movies, it also has a real-life impact. The more we're exposed to negative stories or fear-inducing headlines, the more we internalize the notion that danger is everywhere. We're conditioned to stay vigilant, to be on edge, even when no immediate threat is present. While these influences may have some benefits, keeping us informed and aware, they also increase our levels of stress and contribute to the modern epidemic of anxiety disorders. But how exactly does fear take root in our brains? Let's take a closer look. At the core of fear lies the amygdala, a small, almond-shaped structure deep within the brain. This region is responsible for processing emotions, particularly fear. When we encounter a potential threat, the amygdala is activated, sending signals to other parts of the brain to assess the danger. As soon as a threat is perceived, whether it's a snake on the ground, a loud noise, or even a stressful situation, the amygdala triggers a cascade of reactions. Our heart rate increases, our senses heighten, and our body prepares for action. This is known as the fight, flight, or freeze response. The fight, flight, or freeze response is a survival mechanism designed to prepare our bodies to react quickly to perceived danger. If we're faced with a predator, we can either fight back, flee to safety, or freeze in place, hoping the danger passes. These reactions are automatic and can happen in a fraction of a second. When activated, our body releases hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which elevate our heart rate, increase our alertness, and prepare our muscles for action. But not all fears are life-threatening. Sometimes our responses are triggered by non-physical threats, like a stressful situation or public speaking. In these cases, our bodies may still react as if we're in danger, even though the threat is psychological rather than physical. Adrenaline, the hormone released during fear, provides us with a burst of energy, sharpening our reflexes and enabling us to act swiftly. Cortisol, on the other hand, is a stress hormone that helps us cope with long-term threats. While both of these hormones are crucial for survival, prolonged exposure to high levels of cortisol can have negative effects, leading to chronic anxiety and health problems. This is where modern anxiety disorders come into play. When our bodies are constantly in a heightened state of fear, Whether due to work stress, personal issues, or societal pressures, we experience prolonged stress, which can take a toll on our physical and mental health. Fear comes in many shapes and sizes. While some fears are universal, others are more specific, manifesting in various phobias. A phobia is an intense, irrational fear of something that is typically harmless. Common phobias include social phobia, the fear of public speaking or interacting with others, arachnophobia, the fear of spiders, and agoraphobia, the fear of being in situations where escape might be difficult. These phobias can be debilitating, causing extreme anxiety and avoidance behaviors. While phobias are often irrational, they stem from deeply ingrained fears that the brain associates with danger, even if the threat doesn't exist. The amygdala reacts as if the danger is real, triggering a fear response that can be hard to control. Phobias can impact every aspect of life, from personal relationships to career opportunities. People with severe phobias often find themselves avoiding situations that trigger their fears, which can lead to social isolation and a limited lifestyle. But there is hope. With the right treatment and understanding, phobias can be managed, and many people find ways to regain control over their fears. Overcoming fear is not about eliminating it entirely. It's about learning to manage it. One of the most effective methods is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, a proven approach that helps individuals confront their fears and change their negative thought patterns. CBT teaches individuals to recognize and challenge irrational thoughts, allowing them to reframe their fears and respond in healthier ways. It's a powerful tool in managing anxiety and phobias. Another helpful technique is exposure therapy. This involves gradual desensitization to the feared stimulus, allowing the person to confront their fear in a controlled, step-by-step manner. Over time, this can reduce the intensity of the fear response. Living with fear doesn't mean being controlled by it. Fear can be a powerful motivator, pushing us to take action, grow, and protect what matters most. The key is finding balance, recognizing when fear is serving a purpose and when it's holding us back. Fear, when understood, can be a catalyst for personal growth and resilience. By learning to manage and embrace our fears, we can lead more fulfilling, empowered lives. Fear will always be a part of the human experience. It's an emotion deeply woven into the fabric of who we are. But when we understand its roots, its triggers, and its impact on our lives, we can regain control and live with greater courage. Embrace your fear, understand it, and let it guide you toward growth, not paralysis. Anneliese Michel. Her name is synonymous with one of the most chilling and controversial stories in modern history. A young woman, a devout Catholic, whose tragic journey was marked by torment, faith, and ultimately death. Her story continues to haunt the world, leaving questions that remain unanswered to this day. Was it the work of demons? Or was it a tragic case of mental illness left untreated by those who should have helped her? This is the true story of Anneliese Michel, the chilling account of a life overtaken by darkness, and the battle between faith and science that ultimately led to a devastating tragedy. Born in 1952 in the small town of Liebelfing, Germany, Anneliese Michel grew up in a deeply religious Catholic family. Her life was, by all accounts, one of normalcy, surrounded by love and faith. However, everything changed when she reached her late teens. Anneliese was described as a kind, intelligent young woman, someone who had a strong connection to her faith and a promising future ahead. Her family, staunch Catholics, believed deeply in the teachings of the Church, and their lives revolved around the idea of devotion and prayer. But as Anneliese entered her 20s, the peaceful life she had known would be shattered by a series of unsettling events that would challenge the boundaries of science, faith, and sanity. It began with small, troubling signs. Anneliese's health began to deteriorate, her mind clouded by strange and unsettling experiences. Her parents, who had always viewed her as a healthy young woman, began to notice disturbing changes in her behavior. At first, it was subtle, an occasional feeling of unease, a sense of disconnection from reality. But soon, these experiences grew more intense. Anneliese began to hear voices, whispers in the dark, calling her name. She reported seeing strange figures lurking in the shadows, figures she could not explain. Her family, concerned about her mental well-being, took her to a series of doctors. After undergoing a battery of medical tests, the diagnosis was clear: epilepsy. Anneliese was prescribed medication to treat her condition, but the treatment seemed to do little to quell the growing fears and delusions she was experiencing. As the seizures worsened, so did her symptoms. Anneliese became convinced that she was being possessed, tormented by dark, demonic forces. She spoke of visions of hell, of fire, and of demons inhabiting her very soul. Her family, unable to reconcile the diagnosis of epilepsy with their religious beliefs, found themselves at a crossroads between science and faith. They believed their daughter's suffering was not of the medical world, but of the spiritual realm. They believed she was possessed, and they turned to the church for help. It was in the autumn of 1975 that Anneliese's family sought the aid of the Catholic Church. They were referred to two priests, Father Arnold Renz and Father Unsolved, both of whom were sympathetic to the family's fears and were convinced that an exorcism was the only answer. The priests began performing exorcism rituals on Anneliese, hoping to rid her of the demons they believed had taken possession of her. The exorcism sessions were grueling, lasting for hours, sometimes days. Anneliese was subjected to violent and physical outbursts, convulsions, and vocalizations that seemed beyond her control. During these rituals, Anneliese exhibited signs of extraordinary strength, a distorted voice, and violent behavior. She spoke in languages she did not know and displayed an unnatural knowledge of the lives of the priests and her family. The torment continued relentlessly. The priests, who believed they were fighting a battle against demonic forces, became increasingly overwhelmed by Anneliese's suffering. Despite their efforts, her condition continued to deteriorate. Her physical health was breaking down. She stopped eating, and her weight plummeted. What followed would leave a legacy of controversy. As Anneliese's condition worsened, her family and the priests were charged with negligent homicide. Critics argued that by opting for exorcism instead of medical intervention, they had failed to provide Anneliese with the treatment she desperately needed. Anneliese's tragic death in July 1976, after months of exorcisms, was the tipping point. She passed away from malnutrition and dehydration, a direct consequence of her refusal to eat during the exorcism sessions. The case sparked a nationwide debate. Should the power of faith outweigh medical knowledge? And were the priests and her parents guilty of placing belief above the health and safety of their daughter? The court ruled that the parents and priests were guilty of negligent homicide. They were sentenced to prison, though they served only a fraction of their sentences, citing their belief that they were acting in accordance with their faith. Anneliese Michel's story continues to stir the hearts of many. It raises difficult questions about the intersection of faith, mental illness, and the human mind. Was she truly possessed? Or was her suffering a tragic result of a medical condition left untreated by those around her? And in the end, who is responsible for her death? Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of this case is the ambiguity, the unanswered questions that continue to haunt both believers and skeptics alike. The blending of psychological distress with religious fervor creates a complex web of uncertainty that few can fully understand. As we reflect on Anneliese Michel's life and death, we are reminded of the fine line between faith and science, belief and reason. The tragedy that unfolded serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the complexities of the human mind, the dangers of unchecked faith, and the need for empathy and understanding. Do you believe in possession? Or was it something else, something far more tragic? The story of Anneliese Michel will leave you questioning what you know about the power of belief and the depths of the human soul.